So as some of you probably know, Season 2 of Kipo and the Age of Wonderbeasts dropped this week, and dang is there a lot to talk about. I had not seen the show until this week, during which I binge-watched the first 2 seasons, and dang am I sorry I didn't take the time to watch it yet. This is one of the best cartoons I have honestly ever seen in my life. The show is reminiscent of the Pokemon ripoffs that were all over the place when I was a kid, which often featured a few humans, a couple of cute animal companions, and traveling across a land where you would come across other sentient animals and their tiny little societies. Each episode would generally show the characters get involved in that society's local conflict, which often was a problem caused by the big villain of the show. Kipo follows that same formula, but takes it a step further. Those shows had a soft serialization, where each episode stood on its own and could often be aired out of order without much changing. Kipo, on the other hand, has a consistently shifting plot in relation to the goal of each season. One episode, they're trying to find Kipo's old burrow, the next, they're looking for the new one, and then they need to go on the side quests, and it's just all over the place, but in the best way possible. It is constantly changing so that you feel like you're seeing a full journey, instead of one journey that's being stretched out over 10 episodes. Season 2 takes this a step further in a good direction, in my opinion. But before we jump into that, I want to issue a spoiler warning. We're going to be talking about everything in Season 2, so turn around if you don't want to be spoiled. So, Season 1 ended with Kipo finding her dad and their new burrow, but with Scarlamagne coming in to kidnap all the humans. Kipo, Wolf, Benson, and a few burrow kids are all that remain, and it looks like it is up to them to go and save the human race from monkey enslavement. One of the subplots Season 1 ended with was Benson getting the hots for another boy in the burrow, Troy. For those who are excited to see their relationship explored in Season 2, don't be! Season 2 opens with Troy and the other burrow kids being left behind with the Timbercats, and they aren't really seen again until the finale where they all meet up. For a lot of people, this is going to be a bit disappointing, and I get that. Gay men have rarely been represented in cartoons like this, so having it just tossed out the window for the bulk of the season could be frustrating. On the other hand, I also understand the creative team's intentions behind the separation. The show was really only just getting started at this point, and adding a bunch of characters to each episode's cast would prevent them from further fleshing out their core characters, who can already feel like they don't get enough development in relation to the overarching plot. Putting Troy to the side allowed the main characters to complete their big journey over the next 10 episodes. I was honestly expecting Season 2 to be more about this surface team with Benson and Wolf having to learn how to get along with the burrow kids like Troy and Kipo's friends, which would have been a great conflict with Kipo in the middle, but being able to focus on our core heroes is more important, I think. Plus, Season 2 ends with the characters seemingly back together and no immediate reason to separate like they did before, with even more secondary characters part of the team now. So I think that Season 3 will focus more on all of these new characters and their relationship to the team now that they have been reasonably developed. Another interesting thing about this show is how unimportant romance actually is to it all. Outside of the established marriage of Kipo's parents, Benson and Troy's romance is the only one that exists so far, and that means that the characters are able to exist outside of their ships. Benson isn't defined by being gay the same way that the cast as a whole isn't defined by being black. As much as audiences may want to see their relationship develop further, it is refreshing to see gay people and black people being treated as real characters in a show, as opposed to just representation for a demographic that reduces them to their minority status. Benson didn't want to come out of the closet because he's a gay man. That entire episode was about him wanting to teach a friend about the beauty that can be hidden in the dark world. He doesn't spend his time looking for boys, but rather looking for bubbly water and great music. He's allowed to be a person who happens to be gay instead of just a gay person. Hopefully, they will let that romance flourish a bit in Season 3, though. It would be annoying to see the same thing happen again, with them just pushing it to the side and having these 10-second dates that just don't build into anything at the beginning and end of each season. It would make it feel like it was pandering and pointless if it isn't given a chance to flourish at that point. That being said, it was also really fun to see Benson try to endear himself to Troy's father after they rescued him from Scarlamagne. It was a really interesting way to bring that relationship back to the forefront while allowing us to develop Benson as his own person, and the end result was of course very funny. One issue I had with Season 1, and really the show as a whole, is how not serious a lot of the animal societies are. The Timbercats seem like the most grounded to me, even if a bit silly, but the others could be so ridiculous that it just takes me out of the story, particularly the exercise raccoons. Season 2 takes a step in a better direction, I think, by focusing less on random animal cultures in the city and more on the overarching plot, as well as giving us more mutants that aren't sentient or more than just a particular species that is suddenly able to talk. There are more fun episodes, like the Water Bear episode from Season 1, that makes it really feel like a post-apocalyptic world instead of just Adventure Time with a serious art style. What little we do see of new animal cultures is also handled a lot better, I think. As silly as things like goats seeing the future through cheese may be, they are at least using them in a way that builds more seriously into the overarching story, with other new species like the otters, or whatever the heck this thing was, showing how the various cultures can be more connected than we've seen so far. And that is another thing Season 2 is doing great as well. Since the city is a limited space, it wouldn't make sense to constantly expand its animal societies and never mention the previous ones again. So this season sees a lot of them returning in some capacity. It really helps make the world feel like it is building, as opposed to previous tribes just being disregarded entirely. Having all of the animals come together for Scarlamagne's big crowning ceremony at the end was a great touch. And then of course there is Scarlamagne himself. In Season 1 he was mostly just hinted at before coming in as the big bad at the last minute, thus pushing us into Season 2, but he got plenty of development here. One thing the show seems to be doing is having a very solid seasonal arc that gets wrapped up very well before having the next season's plotline explode out at us in the last minute. This is a dangerous line to walk, as it can be hard to make the story beats feel meaningfully wrapped up, but so far they seem to be doing a good job, with Season 2's finale being a lot better than Season 1's. Scarlamagne's backstory was pretty neat. Having him introduced as a new mute to make him unique from the others and give him a reason to connect with Kipo, both being the product of their parents' experimentations, was a great idea. On the other hand, I feel like they could have done a better job building up the betrayals against him. Kipo's father wasn't really in the wrong, and that makes Scarlamagne a bit less sympathetic. It helped that he had consistently chosen the safety of his baby over Scarlamagne, but there was more that could have been done to make his actions feel like a real betrayal instead of just something that was needed in the moment. The reveal that Kipo's mother was still an existing Megamute was also pretty cool, and pretty well foreshadowed, even if the foreshadowing had made the plot feel a bit clunky back when it first happened. It was pretty cool to see this serious backstory for Kipo's family all come together this way. I frankly wasn't expecting them to be this well thought out. As great as this season was, though, it wasn't without its flaws. As I mentioned before, I really don't like the way the animal societies are often portrayed as ridiculously silly. Seeing snakes who obsess over music or raccoons who live for exercise just doesn't do it for me. For me, it feels like the story isn't taking itself seriously when it does this, and having more serious depictions of these cultures wouldn't detract from the humor, I think. Raccoons living in a dump is something you can find a lot of comedy in without making it seem unrealistic the way that having them obsess over exercise does. Plus, the characters are funny enough with their interactions that they don't need to make the world feel silly for the humor to exist. The world could be a grim, dark place, and the characters would still find reasons to laugh on their own. Another issue I think the show has is that it's almost too perfectly planned, especially this season. I know that sounds like a stupid complaint, and maybe on some level it is, but because of that, the show isn't as surprising as it could be. The show is extremely creative, with new subplots unfolding in each episode that really make you feel like they aren't slowing down the story so much as exploring its potential. But a lot of the overarching story is so by the books that it just feels too easy for the heroes to win sometimes. I would like to see the show challenge itself by introducing some serious elements that the writers have to work around. As important as a well-planned story is, not having a little room for improvisation often makes the ending feel anticlimactic, which was an issue I had with Season 1. It's less of an issue here in Season 2, but a lot of that came from the crazy build-up to the final confrontation with Scarlamagne as an actual villain, as opposed to Kipo just finding her burrow at long last. Hopefully Season 3 will correct those issues. The plot will be going in a pretty new direction that season, and who knows how the show will change because of it. We have a new villain introduced this season who will be working to end the age of the mutants so that humans can be the top species again, but there are no people being abducted or crazy distances they need to travel, so who knows what the new dynamic will be. We have new humans in the crew who hopefully won't just be ditched with the Timbercats again, and a chance to explore the world now that humans can live somewhat freely on the surface without Scarlamagne having it out for them. Only time will tell though. Let me know what you guys think about Season 2 in a comment down below, and I'll see you next time.